First canto. Six Goswami.
Do I have a big book नीचे वो रोटे देना है सोचे
वो कहाँ गया
बड़ा किताब भी है वो
मैं कीमत दे रहा हूँ आती है, थोड़ा सा भी प्रोनाउंसिएशन।
Sanatan Goswami. Sanatan Goswami, 1488 to 1558, was the elder brother of Sri Rup and Sri Anupam. From his earliest years, he was spontaneously attracted to logic, philosophy, rhetoric, and theistic message of Srimad Bhagavatam. In order to gain depth in his understanding of these subjects, he accepted instruction from such luminaries as Vidya Vachaspati, Sarvam Bhattacharya, Parmanand Bhattacharya, and the learned Rambhadra. Although Sanatan, along with Roop and Anupam, was forced to work for Islamic oppositional government in Bengal, although Sanatan, along with Roop and Anupam, was forced to work for Islamic occupational government in Bengal, he never gave up his studies or his religious way of life. He wrote a book called Sadachar Padhuti, which was based on an ancient scriptural conclusion and contains rules and regulations for the gradual advancement of an aspiring spiritualist. In his own life, he scrupulously followed these instructions, and as a householder in the Vedic system, he used to donate food to Brahmanas, priests, destitute people, and lepers on a daily basis. His sense of charity was boundless. One night in a dream, a handsome renunciant came to Sanatan and warned him not to be distracted by worldly mindedness. He ordered Sanatan to go to Vrindavan, unearth the obscured holy places, and preach the scriptural doctrine of divine love. Next morning, Sanatan told his brother, Roop, about the dream. Smiling, Roop confessed that he too was somehow aware of this instruction, and he informed Sanatan that Sri Krishna had indeed descended as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give them further direction in regard to their spiritual calling. With every day that passed, Roop and Sanatan anxiously awaited a sign. When would they be able to renounce their distasteful political service to the Nawab of Bengal and fully replace it with the service to the Lord's lotus feet? The boys consulted their mother, and she suggested that they write a letter to Sri Chaitanya. This they did, and after receiving no reply, they tried writing him again and again. At last Sri Chaitanya responded, but his letter merely contained one verse from scripture. If a woman is involved with a man other than her husband, she may try to be especially diligent in her household duties. In this way, she seeks to avoid detection. Within her heart, however, she is always longing to return to reunited with her paramour. Roop and Sanatan understood his meaning. They should continue to work responsibly for the Nawab, at least temporarily. Inwardly, they could fully meditate on their inevitable surrender unto the Lord's mission. But the Goswamis had to be patient. Sri Chaitanya had just taken sannyas and gone to Puri. Next, he began a pilgrimage that included a 2 year tour of South India. So it was some time before he would journey to North Bengal and meet them at Ramkeli. Nonetheless, the meeting, which took place in 1514, was a pivotal point in the annals of Gaudiya Vaishnava history. This has been described in the previous chapter. After meeting Sri Chaitanya at Ramkeli, Roop and Anupam were able to immediately renounce the world. Sanatan, however, had responsibilities to Nawab, and it was difficult to extricate himself. In an attempt to fulfill his governmental obligation and pursue Krishna consciousness, at the same time, Sanatan feigned illness, telling the Nawab that he had to remain at home until he got well. In this way, he daily studied Srimad Bhagavatam with Ramkeli's chief pandits, and during this period, learned scholars and devotees came from miles around to hear Sanatan's recitation of Bhagavatam. The Nawab became suspicious. Sending a physician to the home of Sanatan Goswami, he found that not only was the Goswami not at all ill, but he had turned his home into virtual ashram with holy men and scriptural readings permeating the atmosphere. Enraged, the Nawab immediately called for Sanatan and demanded that he go with him to Orissa, where he expected to conquer another kingdom. When the Goswami refused to go with him, the Nawab had him temporarily thrown into jail. Luckily, a letter arrived from Roop Goswami informing Sanatan that Sri Chaitanya had departed for Vrindavan. Roop and Anupam were going to meet him, said the letter, and Roop suggested that Sanatan make arrangements to come as well. Having heard that Sanatan had been imprisoned by Nawab, Roop concluded his letter by saying, I have left a deposit of 10,000 gold coins in the Mudis Thane trading market. Use that money to get out of prison. Somehow or other, get yourself released and come to Vrindavan. Sanatan then bribed the Muslim jailkeeper with 7,000 gold coins. Sensing that the jailkeeper was still hesitant to let him go, Sanatan restored to almost comical diplomacy, claiming that he was only leaving jail to go to Makkah, the most important Islamic place of pilgrimage. He also argued that one who releases a conditioned soul from jail is himself released from the conditioned life. When the jailkeeper began to acquiesce, Sanatan had to help him fabricate a story to tell his superiors. After all, the state officials would want to know how the prisoner has escaped. Tell them that you took me to Ganges so I could evacuate. Sanatan suggested, and escaping your attention, I jumped into the river. Jailkeeper agreed. Although Sanatan was not accustomed to sort of trickery he had to use on the Muslim jailkeeper, the situation was exceptional. Rup Goswami had written to him that Supreme Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya would be receiving guests in Vrindavan and that Sanatan would go to see him. In addition, Sanatan was initially thrown in prison for a negligible reason and the Nawab would soon release him upon his return. With these considerations, Sanatan planned to immediately free himself from
किसका क्लास है?
okay, free himself from prison and begin his journey to see Sri Chaitanya. As an escapee, he was not able to walk along the main road, for he would surely be detected and thrown back in prison. Consequently, he and his servant Ishan walked day and night through dangerous forests until they finally reached a hilly tract of land known as Patada in Bihar. Here they stayed in a hotel, and when the hotel manager heard from his palmist that Ishan was secretly carrying 8 gold coins, the hotel manager plotted to kill both Sanatan and his servant and steal their money. Bidding this time, the hotel manager treated them as honored guests and even offered his assistance. Sensing that the hotel manager was too friendly, Sanatan had asked Ishan how much money he had with him. When Ishan said that he had 7 gold coins, he lied in order to keep 1 gold coin for himself. Sanatan immediately took the money and voluntarily gave it to the hotel manager in order to prevent a violent attack upon their persons. Knowing that Ishan had lied about the 1 gold coin, Sanatan let him keep it, but he released Ishan from his service. These actions completely swayed in hotel owner from his previous intentions, and he even assisted Sanatan in his journey through Hazari Bagh mountains and out of Patada. On the way, Sanatan stopped at Hajipur and met his brother-in-law, Shrikant. After hearing about Sanatan's difficulties, Srikanta became concerned about Goswami and asked him to stay with him and his family. But the Goswami declined. His mission was of paramount importance, and he could never settle down to a compromised life of family and friends. This might be suitable for others, especially if they could manage to keep God in center of their life. But Sanatan was to play a direct leading role in Sri Chaitanya's mission. Consequently, he denied that last chance for an easy lifestyle. He was now penniless and bereft of his servant, but he felt truly free for the first time in many years. He left Srikanta's house with nothing more than fine woolen blanket, which his brother-in-law had given him as a gift. After a few days, Sanatan arrived in Benares. Although he was sorry to hear Sri Chaitanya had already finished his tour of Vrindavan, he was pleased that Master was now in Benares and accepting guests there. Sanatan immediately went to the house of Chandrasekhar, for he knew that this is where Sri Chaitanya would be staying. As Sanatan approached, Sri Chaitanya said to Chandrasekhar, "There is a great devotee coming to your door. Go and let him in." Once outside, Chandrasekhar looked in both directions, but he could not see a great devotee or anyone even remotely fitting that description. When he came back and inside and told Sri Chaitanya, the master said, "Is there anyone at the door at all?" Since Sanatan had gone through great austerities in the jungle to get to Benares, he was totally unkempt and certainly unrecognizable as a Vaishnava. Consequently, Chandrasekhar replied, "Well, I did see one disheveled individual. He looked like a Muslim mendicant, perhaps a dervish of Sufi or order. Bring him in here immediately," said Sri Chaitanya. "He is no ordinary dervish." Chandrasekhar then went out to get Sanatan, who was sitting by the door. When he heard that Sri Chaitanya wanted to see him, Sanatan happily followed Chandrasekhar into the main courtyard. Upon entering, Sri Chaitanya lovingly embraced him and they both swooned with ecstatic love for Krishna. After telling Sri Chaitanya the whole story of his stay in prison, the events that followed, Sanatan was put in care of Chandrasekhar and Tapan Mishra. Sanatan first shaved his long hair and beard at Sri Chaitanya's request, then Chandrasekhar took him to the Ganges so he could purely bathe, and then he gave him a new set of clothes. However, Sanatan would not accept the clothes, thinking that they were too opulent. This made Sri Chaitanya very happy, for in this simple rejection of clothing, Sanatan had shown a serious spirit of renunciation. Later, the same day, Sri Chaitanya and Sanatan went to Tapan Mishra's house for lunch. Although extremely pleased with Sanatan, Sri Chaitanya kept glancing at his luxuriant woolen blanket, the one that Sri Kant had given to him. Noticing this, Sanatan could understand that Sri Chaitanya did not approve. The valuable blanket was inappropriate paraphernalia for a person in the renounced order, and so Sanatan considered declaring it. The next day, while bathing in Ganges, he noticed a Bengali mendicant washing a simple torn quilt, then spreading it out to dry. Sanatan immediately approached the simple man and humbly asked if he would be willing to trade his quilt for expensive blanket. At first, the mendicant naturally thought that Sanatan was teasing him, but Sanatan assured him, I am not joking, I am speaking the truth. I would really like to trade my valuable blanket for your torn quilt. The mendicant gratefully agreed to exchange. Sanatan returned to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with his torn quilt draped over his shoulder. When the master asked about the blanket, Sanatan related the story. They were both visibly pleased. Sri Chaitanya then said, I have considered this matter in some depth. Since Sri Krishna is very merciful, he has nullified your attachment for material things. Why should Krishna allow you to maintain a last bit of material attachment? After vanquishing a disease, a good physician does not allow any of the disease to remain. Goswami agreed. Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has saved me from sinful life of material existence. By his desire, my last piece of material attraction is now gone. In addition to this appreciation of Lord's mercy, Sanatan recognized his good fortune in associating with Sri Chaitanya, the Lord's most esoteric descent. Out of your causeless mercy, he told Sri Chaitanya, you have delivered me from materialistic path. Now, by that same causeless mercy, please tell me what my duty is. Enjoying this exchange with Sri Chaitanya, Sanatan began to inquire about the absolute truth. Who am I? Sanatan asked. Why do the miseries of material existence permeate my life? And what is the ultimate goal? In this way, Sanatan humbly asked generic questions that could easily have been asked by anyone, for he wanted clear, authoritative answers from Sri Chaitanya, who then soberly explained to him all secrets of Vedic wisdom. First, the master explained the ontological position of ordinary minute spirit soul. All souls are constitutionally servants of Krishna. Sri Chaitanya said, and they are his part and parcel. The soul is related to God in the same way that the sun rays are related to sun. The soul is energy and God is the energetic source. The sun and the sunshine are in a sense one. As soon as there is sun, there is sunshine, and vice versa. But the sun and sunshine are different as well. In the sun, if the sunshine is once in one's room, it can create a pleasing sensation. But if the sun itself were in one's room, one would not survive the experience. Thus, the sun and sunshine are qualitatively similar, but they are both fiery, but they are quantitatively different. So, too is this case with God and living entities. This philosophy of simultaneous oneness with difference from God, known as Achintya Bheda Bhed Tattva in Sri Chaitanya's language, is central to his doctrine. David Hepperson elaborates in the system of Goswamins, which maintains a position of different within non-differentiation, differentiation within non-differentiation, Achintya Bheda Bhed. Individual is real and separate from while yet maintaining the sameness with the absolute truth. Here, moreover, personal experience is greatly valued. Rupa frequently devaluates the Vedanta goal of union or moksha. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.4.
इसको दे दो
For how could one have a relationship with Krishna if individuality were given up? The goal is not to lose individual being, but rather to overcome the ignorance that keeps us from realizing who we truly are. The aim of bhakti is transformation of identity with not the Vedantin identification with non-differentiation. This is one of the major differences between Bhakti and Vedantic Hinduism. Rupa claims that one is ultimately a character in Vaj Leela, a servant, a friend, an elder, or more important, a lover of Krishna's, but never Krishna himself. The experience of love requires an object and a subject. Thus, absorption into absolute is eschewed and an eternal emotional relationship with Krishna is pursued. In this way, Sri Chaitanya described the living entities as being simultaneously
गुरु पूर्णिमा में आपका आशीर्वाद लेने के लिए आए थे और कल के लिए समावेश आता है I'm sorry I disturbed you.
Okay.
I know today is Guru Purnima, I should speak about this. That's why I was thinking to seek apology for this. जी जी आपसे कल था so yesterday man actually devotees bombarded me so I don't give a call back from her so I was feeling really guilty I did a mistake but you were very good thank you for mercy
going back now? Or?
जी गुरु महाराज हाँ जी जी गुरु महाराज तो बस आपसे मिलेंगे बस आप ही से मिलेंगे हाँ everything is good गुरु महाराज everything is fine अच्छा हाँ तो मैं कहा आपसे डोनेशन कमी कोविड के समय हमारी विजिबिलिटी भी काफ़ी कमी हुई है और ऑनलाइन भी आ गई 30% डोनेशन से कर दिया और मुझे भी कॉन्टैक्ट सेक्शन है सो सब में मिला करके उस सेक्शन में जी और फिर कब आ जाएंगे कॉम्पिटिशन करेंगे जी तो जो आपके लिए सुविधा होगी महाराज देयर इज ऑलवेज एन इनविटेशन फॉर यू इनविटेशन क्या बोला आप ही का मंदिर है जब भी हाँ जी वो वांट टू गेट मैरिड रूपा ने बोला जय दो yes to want to get married so do you want that you know those who want to get married to brahmacharis who met you I don't want to say Ram oh yeah हाँ दो ब्रह्मचारी ये नहीं दो ब्रह्मचारी दो आपके समय है रामानुजन टाइप को और बात दूसरा माने आपका आधा यस जी गुरु महाराज भगवान आपके आशीर्वाद से they become nice because we are association and they are very happy serving you गुरु अभी करीब 30 का स्पेल है 30 35 के बीच में और आने वाले बैचेस में और ज्वाइन करेंगे गुरु दे आर गेटिंग रेडी सो आपके आशीर्वाद से या ऑनलाइन प्रीचिंग यूथ प्रीचिंग कॉलेज प्रीचिंग and temple youth preaching all the three are going good so we आने वाले समय में अच्छे ब्रह्मचारी और ज्वाइन करेंगे inconvenience no as they are serving here, that's what you are asking? No, I don't know. Rather devotees who are doing the same. Marriage is not a good matter. Suppose something. Shiva is doing very good. He's doing very good. He is connecting all the devotees. He has started Bhagavatam reading classes. So Archit, other devotees all come together study Bhagavatam.
पद्मनाभ स्वामी प्रधानमंत्री मंदिर के ना मेन
हाँ अच्छा हम करके यूनिट में
वो आते हैं देखते हैं ना देखते भाषा में कौन सा
जी
राधा रानी बच्चा
the company because it serves in now. So much love. अच्छा गल बात है जी हमारा अभी तो फिलहाल उनको मंथ मैरिज के लिए बना हुआ है जो जय दौड़ का प्लान है तो मंथ मैरिज के लिए जो सेकंड टाइम मिले थे वो आपसे जय दौड़ का जो लंबे से है सो सो आई हैव फाउंड वन गर्ल फॉर हिम शी इज वेरी सिंपल सोबर गर्ल aspiring from you very dedicated so astrologically although around 18 gunas are getting matched but she is very simple sober girl. Her name is Sakshi. Jay Dwarka. No, Guru, that's Rupa Nupur. That's one next one. Yes, but the one whose brother will help him financially, that's Jay Rupa. Yes. Jay Rupa. जी yes जी very diligent doctor who started the company that was proper he worked in particular company in the labor and streamlined various processes so he has got something mind so he is for selflessly so he is learning Sanskrit also yes, it's my parents. Sorry to disturb you, man. I'm so sorry, man. I disturbed you, man. I'm sorry. जी गुरु महाराज, थैंक यू गुरु महाराज.
George. In this way, Sri Chaitanya described the living entities as being simultaneously one with and different from God. But the living entities constitute only one of the God's multifarious energies, and Sri Chaitanya wanted to give Sanatan a more thorough understanding describing other more confidential categories of this energy. Krishna's direct energies, for example, extend from Srimati Radharani, the greatest manifestation of these energies, to the aforementioned ordinary living beings. Subtle matter, however, such as the mind, intelligence, and illusory or false ego, are also counted among Krishna's energies. But these are called indirect, for they are qualitatively removed from the spiritual principle. This energy extends to the level of gross matter or inert material elements. Nonetheless, all are energies of God and were explained in detail to Sanatan Goswami. After this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu briefly analyzed the three primary conceptions of the Absolute Truth are the Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan manifestation of the Supreme. With reference to ancient Vedic scriptures and logic, Sri Chaitanya showed Sanatan that the Brahman conception was rudimentary. It is the impersonal idea of the divinity stating that God is an abstract force, indescribable in concrete terms. One may arrive at this level of understanding by disciplined mental gymnastics, Gyan Yoga. Superior to this, however, is the Paramatma conception, wherein one realizes that the amorphous absolute also has a more localized feature and that he actually permeates every atom in this personal form. Meditating yogis, after a life of grueling sensual control and developed concentration, may attain this level of spiritual realization. But it is not likely that modern day yogis will make much progress on this path. For, according to the scriptures that originally outlined the yoga system, this process takes 100, if not thousands of years to perfect. The Bhagavan feature is the highest, and this culminates in full realization of Supreme Person Krishna and the heartfelt enthusiasm to worship Him with song and dance. This is the process recommended for the present age, and Sri Chaitanya naturally advised Sanatan Goswami to pursue this path in earnest. One who achieves perfection in this discipline is called a Suddha Bhakta or a pure devotee of the Lord. There is no higher attainment. Next, Sri Chaitanya elaborately described the methodology of Krishna's descent, avatar. First, he told Sanatan Krishna exists in his original self-existent form, Swayamrup, playing on his flute in his threefold bending pose. This form then expands into his various hypostatic manifestations, Tad Ekatma, which may differ in appearance and sometimes in potency. But these forms are still manifestations of Krishna or a direct plenary expansion. There are also indirect plenary expansion, and these were enumerated by Sri Chaitanya. Another type of expansion includes Krishna's empowered representative, Avesh Avatar. In addition, Sri Chaitanya explained how Krishna expands into Radharani by the three primary aspects of his potency, Sandhini, Samved and Ahladini. These gradually expand into his Yogmaya energy, which is essentially spiritual in nature, and his Mahamaya potency, which is a further expansion for manifesting the material world. Fully developing these ideas, Sri Chaitanya gave Sanatan detailed information about the nature of God. Essentially, Sri Chaitanya described the complete Vedic revelation in regard to man's relationship with the Supreme, Sambandha Gyan. He elaborated upon the process for developing that relationship, Avideya Gyan, and he gave detail about the ultimate goal of that relationship, Prayojan Gyan, realized in tangible and direct service to God through love and devotion. After instructing Sanatan Goswami in this way for 2 months, Sri Chaitanya gathered his many followers and engaged in massive Nagar Sankirtan festival chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, with all of the inhabitants of Banaras. According to Chaitanya Charitamrita, All of these residents of Banaras became devotee of Krishna due to Sri Chaitanya's association. Soon the master wanted to go to Puri and Sanatan Goswami wanted to accompany him. Sri Chaitanya, however, instructed Sanatan to go to Vrindavan as he had instructed Rup and Anupam before him. Sanatan immediately took Sri Chaitanya's word to heart and travelled to this holiest of city. Once there, he met Subudhi Roy, one of Sri Chaitanya's followers, who told him about Rupa and Anupam's short stay and how they had quickly left for Puri to meet the master. Sanatan decided to do the same, and after visiting the 12 forests of Vrindavan, proceeded on the path to Puri. Sanatan travelled in the most austere way, taking little food and water and sleeping under a different tree every night. To remember the activities of his master, he travelled through the Jharikhanda forest, retracing the path followed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Unfortunately, Sanatan developed a severe case of angina from bathing in and drinking the stagnant water of the various ponds of this forest. Insult was added to injury when he finally arrived in Puri, where he discovered that Anupam had passed away and that Rup had left for Vrindavan just prior to his arrival. While in Puri, Sanatan's troubles were elevated by his association with Haridas Thakur, the master of the holy name, a title given by Sri Chaitanya himself in the honor of Haridas Thakur's daily chanting 3 lakhs name of Krishna. Every day after going to the temple to see Lord Jagannath, Sri Chaitanya used to visit Haridas Thakur, and at that time he would see Sanatan Goswami as well. Upon entering Haridas' room, Siddha Bakul, he embraced Sanatan in great affection. This disturbed the Goswami. He felt unqualified to be embraced by someone as pure as Sri Chaitanya. In addition, his angina had become severe and the sore on his body sometimes excreted blood and pus, often oozing onto the master's soft skin. This was intolerable for Sanatan, who said that he would rather give up his own life than defile the body of Sri Chaitanya in this way. Just as Sanatan was making plans to throw himself beneath the massive wheels of Rath Yatra cart during the annual Rath Yatra parade, Sri Chaitanya said, "Is it not a fact that you have surrendered body and soul to Krishna? If your life is Krishna's, then you have no right to end it. The time of your demise is up to him. You cannot misuse another's property." In this way, Sanatana understood that society is sinful, and no matter how much he felt like an offender, it was his duty to live and serve Krishna to the best of his ability. In fact, Sri Chaitanya also told him that he had much work to do through Sanatan's body and mind. Sri Sanatan Goswami was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's valuable instrument. Months passed and Sri Chaitanya finally told Sanatan to go to Vrindavan to work with Rup. He practically wanted Sanatan to write a Vaishnava Smriti, a book focusing on rules and regulation, and he gave him a basic outline for completing this work. Sanatan eventually published this as the Hari Bhakti Vilas under Gopal Bhatt Goswami's name. For Gopal had worked the work and had supplied additional information. Sri Chaitanya also asked Sanatan to assist Rup in uncovering the lost Vaishnava holy places and in establishing beautifully opulent temples as well. Traveling once again through the dense Jharikhanda forest, this time with a note kept by Balbhadra Bhattacharya, who documented the exact path taken by Sri Chaitanya. And then through Banaras and Prayag, Sanatan came to Vrindavan. When he arrived, there were still no temples. What was once the city of Krishna's youth was then lying vacant like an open field. The very first temple in Vrindavan, Madan Mohan Temple, would be established by Sanatan Goswami. His efforts set up precedent and other temples were gradually constructed. Today, Vrindavan boasts some 5,000 temples. Like the Govinda deity later established by Rupa Goswami, the Madan Mohan deity is said to have originated with Vraja, Krishna's great grandson. To protect these deities during the violent Muslim invasion, they were buried and by the time of Goswamis were lost or forgotten. The reclamation of these deities was part of the mandate given to the Goswamis by Sri Chaitanya. The story behind the discovery of Madan Mohan is particularly fascinating. It seems that Sanatan had a dream in which a beautiful deity of Krishna was being worshipped by a humble priest from the city of Mathura. Sanatan thought that if he could worship that particular deity in a grand way, it would attract many people to Krishna consciousness. But in the dream, at least, the deity belonged to this humble Brahmana, and Sanatan could not convince him to give up his deity of Krishna. Without resolving this dilemma, the dream ended. The next day, however, Sanatan went out to the beg alms as was his custom, and he came to the home of a poor Brahmana named Purushottam Chaube. Upon entering his home, Sanatan saw that the event of his previous night's dream were in fact a reality. Sanatan gazed upon the beautiful form of Madan Mohan, the same deity who appeared in his dream. He knew that this deity was meant to be worshipped in a grand way for everyone to see. Nonetheless, just as in Sanatan's dream, the priest at first refused to relinquish his deity. But later that night, Madan Mohan himself came to the priest in a dream and insisted that he reconsider. Complying with the wishes of Madan Mohan, the priest entrusted his deity to Sanatan Goswami. The next day, Sanatan carried the deity to the opposite side of Vrindavan and established the worship of Madan Mohan in a little hut. The magnificent temple that was soon to be constructed for the deity was erected where that little hut once stood. The construction of the temple can be traced to a wealthy salt merchant named Krishnadas Kapoor, who was one day delivering his goods by boat to a market in Agra. When the boat became grounded on a sandbar just opposite Sanatan's hut, Kapoor began to pray for the help of God. Seeing Kapoor's despair, Sanatan invited him to worship Madan Mohan. And while he was praying before the deity, the boat floated clear. Kapoor was then able to complete his business and profiting large sums of money. As a result, the wealthy merchant felt indebted to Madan Mohan. Thus, he agreed to finance the building of Madan Mohan's temple. The imposing edifice that exists today was completed sometimes in the 1580s. After the worship of Madan Mohan was firmly established, various deities and their worship were introduced all over the Holy Land. Govindev, Radharaman, Gopinath, Jugal Kishore, Banke Bihari, Radha Ballabh, Radha Syam Sundar, Radha Gokulanand, Radha Damodar, and the Krishna Balaram deities established in 1970s by the International Society for Krishna Consciousness or ISKCON are the prominent deities of Vrindavan. But Sanatan Goswami's Madan Mohan is in many ways the most important. His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada confirmed the importance of Madan Mohan. Srila Sanatan Goswami is the ideal spiritual master, for he delivers one the shelter of the lotus feet of Madan Mohan. Even though one may be unable to travel on the field of Vrindavan due to the forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can get adequate opportunity to stay in Vrindavan and derive all spiritual benefits by the mercy of Sanatan Goswami. This is also the special mercy of Madan Mohan. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas first offers his obeisances to Madan Mohan Vigraha, Sanatan Goswami's deity, the deity who can help us progress in Krishna consciousness. Along with Madan Mohan, Rupa Goswami's Govindev deity and Madhu Pandit's Gopinath deity are the life and soul of Chaitanyites Vaishnavas. Madan Mohan represents Sambandh Tattva, Govindev represents Abhijay Tattva, and Gopinath represents Prayojan Tattva. As Srila Prabhupada says, these three deities have very specific qualities. Worship of Madan Mohan is on the platform of re-establishing our forgotten relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the beginning of our spiritual life, we must worship Madan Mohan so that he may attract us and nullify our attachment for material sense gratification. This relationship with Madan Mohan is necessary for neophyte devotees. Then, when one wishes to render service to the Lord with strong attachment, one worships Govinda on the platform of transcendental service. When by the grace of Krishna and the other devotees one reaches perfection in devotional service, he can appreciate Krishna as Gopijan Vallabh, Gopinath, the pleasure deity of the damsels of Vrindavan, damsels of Vraja. Chanted 3 times a day by Brahmanas, the famed Gayatri mantra is also said to be honor this progression of deities Madan Mohan, Govind and Gopinath by specifically mentioning their names. One line of mantra began as follows: Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Vallabhaya. Traditionally, Krishnaya refers to Madan Mohan, Govindaya refers to Govindev, and Gopijana Vallabh refers to Gopinath. These three deities are again alluded to in the last line of Gayatri mantra known as Kam Gayatri Klim Kam Devaya Vidmahe Pushpabanaya Dhimahi Tanno Anang Prachodayat. The inner meaning of this verse is very confidential, but Srila Prabhupada explains it in relation to these three deities as Krishna is called Kamadeva or Madan Mohan, the deity who establishes our relationship with Krishna. Govinda or Pushpaban, who carries the arrow made of flower, is the personality of Godhead who accepts our devotional service. Anang or Gopijana Vallabh satisfied all the gopis and is the ultimate goal of life. As the person who established the worship of Madan Mohan, Sanatan Goswami occupies a special position in the Chaitanya's disciplic succession. He is the representative teacher of Sambandha Gyan or knowledge of our proper devotional relationship with Krishna. Rupa Goswami, whose name is inseparably connected with that of Govindadev, is the representative teacher of Abhidheya Gyan or knowledge of how to develop that relationship with Krishna. It is interesting, however, that Raghunath Das Goswami, not Madhu Pandit, is considered the representative teacher of Prayojan Gyan, the perfection of love of God. Nonetheless, it is said that Raghunath Das Goswami accepts the lotus feet of Sri Rupa as his highest aspiration, and that Rupa in turn accepts Sanatan Goswami as his spiritual master and the lord of his life. In this sense, spiritual life is suicidal, for there is no higher or lower in a realm where everyone competes to be the highest by serving the lowest. It can thus be said that one devotee chases after the other and all chases after Krishna. The material world has a sort of chasing system of its own, and when one is not chasing after gross or subtle sense gratification, he finds that he too is chasing God, albeit for materialistic reason, either to become his equal or to surpass him. Such chasing is often unconscious. Nonetheless, it has its effect, and a good example of this took place in year 1670 when the fanatic Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb ordered the destruction of all sacred images and temples. He alone was the monarch, and he would not share his post with a mere coward boy named Krishna. At that time, to protect the Lord of their lives, a band of simple villagers moved the deity of Madan Mohan from Vrindavan to Jaipur. Soon after, the Mughal emperor resigned. However, when the deity was again safe, he was moved to Karauli, this time at the request of the princess of Jaipur. She and her husband, the king of Karauli, constructed an opulent temple for Madan Mohan, who has remained there ever since. Having firmly established the worship of Madan Mohan, Sanatan Goswami was free to write transcendental literature. Some of the books compiled by Sanatan are the Haribhakti Vilas, edited by Gopal Bhatt, Brihad Bhagavatamritam, Dasam Tippani, and Dasam Charitra. Since Haribhakti Vilas was discussed in the chapter on Gopal Bhatt Goswami, we need not discuss it here. Regarding Brihad Bhagavatamritam, it is divided into two parts, each dealing with the discharge of pure devotional service. The first part is the analytical study of the secrets of Vedic wisdom, including a detailed description of other planet from the material universe to the kingdom of God. There are also descriptions of devotees tracing them from the most fundamental level to the most exalted. Brahma, Brahma, for instance, is described as a Brahma is described as a devotee who is representative of Karma Misra Bhakti, or the level of devotional service that is still mixed with fruitive desire. Lord Shiva, on the other hand, is paradigmatic of a devotee who is tinged with the desire for knowledge, Gyan Misra Bhakti. This is not to say that Brahma or Shiva themselves are necessarily on this level, but that those who are on this level will be attracted to these particular modes of service. Karm Kandi or fruity workers are generally attracted to Lord Brahma, while the yogis and jnanis are inclined to Lord Shiva. Entering the realm of Sudha Bhakti or pure devotional service, Rasa began to manifest, and Brihad Bhagavata Amrita carefully delineates the archetypal devotees of each level. Prahlad, for example, represents Sant Rasa or neutral love for his relationship with the God, consists mainly of offering prayers as opposed to active service. Higher still is Hanuman, for his an ideal servant Dasyas. Beyond this stage, we find the Pandavas who represent the friendly relationship Sakaras. But the Pandavas' love pales next to that of the Yadavas, Krishna's intimate Dwarka associate, who are headed by Uddhava. His love almost equal that of Mother Yasoda and Nand Maharaj, Krishna's foster parents Vatsalarasa. The hierarchy, of course, culminates in the love of the gopis headed by Srimati Radharani. This is the most coveted Madhuras, the highest level, the platform of conjugal love. After explaining this in some detail, Sanatana Goswami begins the second part of his Brihad Bhagavatamritam. There we read about the glories of the spiritual world known as Golok Mahatma Nirupan, as well as process for announcing the material world. In a scientific, analytical way, Sanatan takes his readers through every aspect of spiritual life. In this way, there are 14 chapters to Brihad Bhagavatamritam, 7 chapters in each part. Dasam Tipani is Sri Sanatan's commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Another name for this commentary is Brihad Vaishnava Tosani Tika. This work clearly explains the Chaitanyate perspective on all of Krishna's activities and thus constitute the bona fide inner interpretation of the scriptures. Dasam Tipani was eventually given to Jeev Goswami to edit, and that version was published separately under the title Laghu Toshni. These two commentaries on the 10th canto are both invaluable contribution to the storehouse of Chaitanyate Vaishnava literature. Although Sanatan wrote other important books such as Dasam Charitra, his Hari Bhakti Vilas, Brihad Bhagavatamritam and Dasam Tipani remain his most important. In fact, the significance of Sanatan Goswami's literary accomplishment cannot be stressed enough. Extolling the virtue of this literature, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada has written, Sri Sanatan Goswami Prabhu, the teacher of the science of devotional service, wrote several books, of which the Brihad Bhagavatamritam is very famous. Anyone who wants to know about the subject matter of devotees, devotional service and Krishna must read this book. Sanatan Goswami also wrote a special commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam known as Dasam Tippani, which is so excellent that by reading it, one can understand very deeply the pastimes of Krishna and his discharge of loving activities. Ontologically, Sanatan Goswami is the closest friend of Sri Rup. This may in part explain his productivity towards transcendental literature and his insight into spiritual life, as Kavi Kanpur has revealed in his Sri Gaur Ganesh Deepika. Rup Manjari's closest friend, who was known by the name Rati Manjari and Lavang Manjari, descend as Srila Sanatana Goswami. He was honored by everyone and was considered to be like an extension of transcendent body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sanatan Kumar, the jewel among the sages, entered the body of Sanatan Goswami, who is therefore also considered to be an incarnation of Sanatan Kumar.
प्रभु जी
आशीर्वाद दे दीजिए। इसका जरूरत ही नहीं।
Thank you. क्या सेवा करते हो?
Bye.